All right. Next one. I didn't really expect that we were going to be talking about this man again so soon. But again, he's forced his way into our highly exclusive selection of topics. We're going to talk about JOAQUIN Buckley again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after having like a less than ideal middleweight career, let's put it that way, wasn't terrible, but it could have been better. Buckley's since dropped down to welterweight and is making quite the impact down there with 4 wins in 4. His latest 2 coming within just 6 weeks of each other, which was a KO win against Vicente Luque and a decision win last weekend against Rudzaboev. And you can ask Mikey about this one. I said he was going to beat him. So don't take my word for it. So, again, I'm going to ask a very similar question as I did earlier regarding Mr. Allberg. How far do you think Buckley gets at welterweight after such an impressive start against 4 very decent opponents?
I actually think that Buckley is better than people give him credit for. I think he actually showed that in this fight, because he won this fight not with his striking, not with, the dynamic movements and techniques that, he showed against Impa Kasangane, or, his knockout power that he showed against Luque, who really probably kind of quit in that fight, to be honest. He showed it with his wrestling. I mean, in some powerful wrestling, like really utilizing the strength and power that man has. For a dude that's 5'9" in that division, like he's every bit the physical specimen needed to be successful in that division. So as far as where he can go in this division, I think that he can fight in the top 5. I actually do think that he can fight within the top 5. I think that the upper echelon, like, you put him up there fighting Leon Edwards, I think that Leon would definitely give him tons of trouble. Shavkat is probably going to finish him. But can he beat Bilal? Yeah, he can. I think he can. I think that him fighting Sean Brady or somebody like that, that's a real test to see how he does with somebody that is super grapple heavy. But with his strength and his explosiveness, like, I think he gives anybody up there trouble, including the people that I just named, because he can still catch them with one shot and put them out. I think he's a dark horse, man, in this division. And now that he's gotten a lot of fanfare behind him, especially with did you see the response that he got? Now, I know that that's at home in St. Louis, but when you get that kind of pop somewhere,
he's been getting some love, though.
Yeah, when you get that kind of pop somewhere, it tends to be infectious to other places, because people like to jump on the bandwagon. They like to jump onto the new hot thing. I think that that's going to start to filter into other places when he fights other places. So, not to mention he's got the highlight reel of highlight reels when it comes to what he did. Oh yeah. So, yeah, dude, I think he can take
a guy who's doing very well in another organization as well. Guy's a champion in another organization.
Yeah. That win's looking pretty good. So I think that he could. I think if he continues to improve his grappling, continues to improve his fight IQ, which I think is actually pretty good, I think that he can definitely make his way to the top 5. Maybe within 2 fights, he could find his way into the top 5. If people like Bilal actually, get booked to fight and the division gets rolling, perhaps, maybe. But we'll see about that. But I think that he can make his way up there for sure.
Yeah, it's fucking spooky how similarly aligned we are. Like I'm virtually going to say the same thing. I do I've been somebody who's liked Buckley for quite a while now, and I've been on his side for quite a while. I know he's had this reputation of kind of being somebody who was quite bratty, quite difficult to deal with in gyms. He had that kind of reputation where he was kind of rubbing people up the wrong way. But he seems to have humbled himself a little more, certainly behind the scenes. I do think like his trash talk is like god awful, and this, like, people were talking about his call out of McGregor last weekend. That's not the first stupid call out he's done, and it's not the first time he's called out McGregor. Like, he's done this multiple times. Like, he's not very, he could use some help on that side of things in terms of, because a lot of people don't realize this. Some people do. That time you get on the mic to call people out is very, very important. You need to make sure that you're being very strategic in how you use that time.
Yep.
Because it can make or break your career in terms of who you get. The right call out at the right time can steer your career in a certain direction. And he's never handled that well. So that side of it, I think, is quite poor on his side. But what you brought up and what I'm most impressed with about Buckley, it's the evolution in the dude. You summarized it perfectly. He was very striking heavy at middleweight, a division that he was way too small with to begin with. And he seemed to kind of be somebody who lived or died by the sword. And it's, as you said, it's the wrestling that he's thrown in now that is so impressive. And it's very, very important in the division like welterweight, where it used to be a very dominant heavy division, and it's not so much that way now. You've kind of got strikers that can wrestle in the division, but they're mostly striking based first. Yeah, that's where you get. And I agree with you. What you said about Leon and Shavkat, they're probably the only two that I would definitively say he won't beat. And I know you say he could probably give them trouble based on what I've seen of his, and maybe if he continues to evolve, we don't know, maybe he could. I don't see him giving those two any kind of trouble. And it's not a knock on Buckley, because I don't think anyone else in the division could either. I just think that Buckley's just one rung below those two. And I genuinely think that he could beat everyone else inside the top 10. I really think he's that good. Now, I'm not going to include Kamaru in this one, because partly because we don't know where Kamaru's at in terms of with his injuries and whatnot, but also I suspect he might go up to middleweight anyway. I can see that kind of coming for him, so I'm kind of leaving Kamaru to the side, and I don't think that fight would ever happen anyway. Nah, I can't see a situation where those two, because Kamaru's either going to be looking for championship fights or fun fights, or he's not going to be looking for some up and coming murderer who. Those aren't the kind of fights for Kamaru. When you get to that multiple defense level, where you've had 6-7 defenses, you're not fighting up and coming killers. Yeah. You're either fighting other legends, or you're fighting other guys who are going to be in the Hall of Fame, or you're going up and trying something new. You're not fighting a Buckley, so that's why I'm not really going to think about it. I think he could potentially beat everyone else. I think he'd beat Brady, because I think he'd be able to neutralize his wrestling, and maybe even, I don't know if he could out wrestle him, but I know he would fuck him up on the feet. Yeah,
if Bilal did, imagine what Buckley would do.
Imagine. Gary, I do think Gary's a better striker than Buckley, but I think Buckley's wrestling, again, would cause a problem for Gary in that fight. Not saying he'd definitely win that fight, but he could. Yeah. Gilbert Burns, I think, is just done out here. The interesting one for me that I thought about was Jack Della Maddalena.
Ooh. You know what? And I didn't even bring him up, and I should have. I should have, because that is the other person in the division outside of Leon and Shavkat that I think is a major problem. If there was if Leon and Shavkat said, you know what, I can't make this weight no more, I don't know who beats Jack Della Maddalena.
It would have to be a very, very, very good wrestler that can keep people down. And the reason why I like Buckley as a potential for Jack Della Maddalena is because, as we've talked about with Maddalena before, he does have very good takedown defense, but also he hasn't really fought somebody that has the explosive takedown offense of somebody like a Buckley.
Mhm.
Now, obviously, Madalena would again be better on the feet. Madalena's striking, certainly with his hands, is elite.
It is.
Like his boxing and his body work is some of the best that I've seen.
But the benefit,
So I
though,
wouldn't fancy it for
the
Buckley.
benefit for Buckley is the fact that he was at middleweight, so he's felt that type of power. So that's true. That's true. Ooh, that would be a great fight.
And the explosive takedowns, and so but you can see what I'm saying in terms of you can make a case for both men, which is what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
So I think, like, bottom line, I think Buckley has a great future in this. I'm not bringing up Colby Covington because
he don't count.
Fuck him. He's no longer a fighter in my eyes, sir. He's a
Donald Trump lobbyist.
With a name.
That's what he is. He works on his staff. Yeah.
I was gonna talk about MVP as well, but like, apparently they're talking about him maybe fighting Gary.
Yeah.
And I don't see them doing those two right now. It just doesn't. I don't see it as a good matchup for either of them right now.
Nah.
I think him and Gary would make more sense.
It would.
But yeah, I think Buckley in the next 12 months will be in the top 5.
Man.
And I think he's going to do relatively well.
You know what's?
I don't think he'll quite make it to the top.
Yeah, he'll be in the top. You know what's interesting? 2 points. One, afterwards, he did when afterwards they go around and they go and talk to ESPN and do that interview, and Dean Thomas asked Buckley about that call out, and Dean Thomas was like, "Do you really think you're going to get that fight?" And he was like, "Nah, probably not." He's like, "So who do you really want to fight?" And he was like, "No, I actually think that somebody like Gilbert Burns would make sense." And so that got out to Gilbert Burns, and Gilbert Burns said, "I accept." So, I mean, if he fights Gilbert Burns, and if Gilbert Burns is cooked, like
Gilbert Burns is such a savage, though, man.
He is, man.
I love that Gilbert Burns never says no.
He doesn't.
He's just like, let's go, whoever it is.
He doesn't.
I love Gilbert Burns for that, no matter what. And he knows where he's at in his career.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna have to take those kind of fights now.
Yeah,
I don't like it for him, but
he's got to take some risk. Gosh, but
gotta take some risk.
That would be a tough fight for him, but it's a winnable fight for Gilbert. But gosh, Buckley would be heavily favored. At least I think so.
Sure. Especially the tear that he's on.
Yeah.
I think he'd be like a -200, and rightfully so. I think it'd be about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because Gilbert's still dangerous, and he looked all right against Jack. It's just he's old now.
He is.
And I know how that feels.
Yeah, and it's affected his striking. Gosh, it's affected his striking heavily. The second thing that I was going to say was, looking at Buckley, this is what we thought Kevin Holland was going to do when he dropped down to welterweight. When he dropped down to welterweight and he won, his first fight impressively, we're like, oh, okay, now we're about to see him make this run and start to really get serious, get into title contention. No. No, not at all. Didn't happen.
No, it's because I love Kevin Holland, but he's stupid. And this is the problem. It's like he's a company guy he knows who he is. He's gonna have, I mean, stupid in an affectionate way.
Yeah.
He's stupid in terms of how he manages his career.
Mm-hmm. Can't say yes all the time, man.
He just says yes. He says yes, and then when the fans say, "Are you gonna grapple?" even though you probably should, he goes, "No, I'm not. We're gonna just stand and bang. I'm gonna stand and bang with Stephen Thompson, and then make a Madeo commercial with him."
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty good.
It was a good commercial.
Yeah. It's a good commercial. Yeah.